Hello and welcome to our broadcast of Overwatch Contenders Season 3 of Trials for Europe. I'm Labosco alongside of me, Vowels and Kenobi, getting ready for game number 1 on the day of Osh-Tekk Warriors versus Tea and Biscuits. Kenobi, Vowels, how we doing, guys?
I'm doing pretty all right. I'm really excited for the Trials match we've got today.
I'm excited as well. Can't wait to see what we're going to be getting with these two teams.
Well, we have going here in the first game, Osh-Tekk Warriors versus Tea and Biscuits. Both of these teams lost yesterday, both of them looking for their first win here today. And both teams are trying to prove themselves in this one as we are going into our first map of Nepal. So we're going to throw it to Lemon Kiwi and Heroics here. Take it away.
Hey everybody, we got our first match here, the 4-map set between Osh-Tekk Warriors and T-Biscuits. We're getting right into this game here, but give me the cliff notes of what we need to know about these two teams before we get into it.
Well, Osh-Tekk Warriors, Tea and Biscuits, they're both starting out 0-1 right now in this round robin phase of Contenders EU Trials. So obviously both teams really looking to try to prove something here. Coming in, they don't have as much experience as some of the other teams that they've already faced already and are going to be facing forward. So I think right now it really comes down to them showing up against someone at their level so that they can step forward and have that advantage going forward.
Well, you see T-Biscuits in the red, Osh-Tekk Warriors in the blue, and off the bat, it's going to be the GOATS comp from Osh-Tekk, but a way different setup from T-Biscuits. They have the Widowmaker and Filion on the Pharah, so this might be a really good setup for T-Biscuits. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we see a lot of this Moira-style composition coming through with the GOATs. They're going to try to stay together as much as they possibly can. Already found the Widow to start things off. A nice start for them.
Well, you can see Filion, he could get the boop if he wanted to. Now, you can see Osh-Tekk are on to the point, getting that first initial pick. It's going to get rezzed up, though. Lynx back into the fight. The dive comes in for T-Biscuits. It traps Osh-Tekk in this tiny corridor, and they've already secured a few picks now onto the tanks of Osh-Tekk as they try to re-engage. It's Kassar with 100 energy just melting through this Mega the Diva, but it's Lynx with the 2K, and T-Biscuits flip it around and get the first capture.
So hard to play that composition on this point because what you can do is you can wrap around, you can make those play, get those picks that like they did on the Widow Lynx, but as soon as you get that, then you're going on to the point and then you can just get surrounded. That's exactly what we saw Osh-Tekk playing that beautifully, allowed themselves a great opportunity to just confine that GOATS comp into a tiny area where they could just kind of pick at them as they really kind of desired to throughout. I mean, now we're setting things up. They have great vision. They can see the takes that we're going to be getting from Osh-Tekk here as well. The way that they want to get in here is dropping in. They're going to be in that same spot that they got caught in already.
They're going through the corridor again, and where's Filion with this barrage? He drops right on top, and it gets mostly reflected, and it pushes Osh-Tekk back into that corridor. So, Jazafina losing that mech, not a great start to Osh-Tekk. They need the retake now, but she caught Webster in the middle of that Valkyrie. Huge pick for Osh-Tekk. They try to re-engage, but it's the Transcendence that tries to keep T-Biscuits alive and well onto this point. Lynx, meanwhile, has been finding picks. What a boop from Broughton, Visto off the map. So, although Osh-Tekk had picked off Webster early, that's a little bit of a Graviton trapping too. You can see how much Kassar wants to flip this in his favor. He survives and gets the flip. How long does he survive on this though, Heroics?
He's going to be able to stay alive with this Lucio. They're going to get a quick reset if they can. Jazafina coming back, but there's the re-entry off the dive as well. Valmaster dropping right in. He's low. He's going to get melted that quick by Kassar. So a reset point now as Osh-Tekk getting aggressive, and that's something that they're going to try to do here, just to kind of posture up aggressively as possible to try to take more time off the clock. They're already so far behind, and they really want to keep this close quarters as much as they possibly can, because if they falls back to point, they get surrounded and they lose that very quickly.
Oh, that shield is low, and Filion will have a great spot to use that barrage once he finds the right angle. You can see now, he should be raining right on top of them. The Sound Bear, though, he wants to wait this out, and you can see Osh-Tekk speeding around. There's the barrage. There's so much health. He actually burns through 2 players of Osh-Tekk as they're trying to re-engage here. They still have in charge, or they're still in possession of the point. T-Biscuits going now for the retake, but Osh-Tekk have managed to stall enough time to get to 50% plus. Self-destruct up into the air just to stall this time even more, as actually a re-engage comes from Osh-Tekk. Seems like a winnable situation, but Filion has been cornering everybody. Finally, Jazafina back in mech can pressure that Pharah back. Meanwhile, Webster with the Valkyrie has been able to help T-Biscuits with this re-engage. We're up to 70%, and there's another fight going here.
They got so much control, though, as they just keep them inside of that little back room time and time again, and nobody's able to deal with Villian on this Pharah. I mean, there's no real answer because Moira is just too contested to be able to go out with that Coalescence. So easy cleanup now for Tea and Biscuits, and now looking to control this for the rest of the duration of the match, but they do still have to deal with that Graviton Surge that's going to come out from Kassar. That could be, a big threat for them, but as Villian gets yet another barrage up very shortly, we will see what kind of impact he can have. Obviously, the last time he pulled this out, he was able to get a 3K very quickly in rapid succession. So if he can have that kind of value, that kind of efficacy with this ultimate, they could be able to pull this out right here.
Well, it's got to be a huge Graviton from Kassar. If they want to take this back, it's already 95% to T-Biscuits, and there is a Graviton, but it's the responding barrage that closes this re-engage, and you got Lynx picking up everybody trying to push on to this point. It's 99% for T and Biscuits. The Transcendence should close this first match out, and Osh-Tekk not able to get that retake with the Gravitons and the ultimates they had available.
But this is I would say, honestly, from their perspective, the hardest round that they will have in this particular map here on Nepal, because as we look at it, Sanctum is just a map that it's a struggle for a GOATS comp, because you can get surrounded, you can get taken out very easily by dive style compositions, because you don't really have too many points of regression. You also don't have the allowance to be as aggressive as you really kind of want to. So really, I mean, there's no great direction, I guess, for you to put that thing in drive, and there's certainly no good direction for you to put it in reverse either. So you're just kind of stuck, you get surrounded, and you die off, and that's exactly what we saw. They did a good job of maintaining control for quite a bit there, but realistically, it was just Tea and Biscuits regaining their ultimates and regaining control before they actually just, push down on the gas pedal to keep those driving analogies going.
Well, let's see if Osh-Tekk can put the brakes on this good start from T-Biscuits. It's a double tank Somber from T-Biscuits. And looks like Osh-Tekk switching back to the Zenyatta with their goats. So not the Moira, but the Zenyatta this time. We'll see how this engage goes. T-Biscuits have that middle map. Osh-Tekk have the Lucio ready to speed boost in, but Toxin gets bashed really early. And even Visto finding the unlucky end of that engagement. So Osh-Tekk waited for the engage up until the point unlocked, but it's going to be T-Biscuits, Tea and Biscuits that come out on top.
Interesting, though, that they are running the Zenyatta. This is not really their flavor. They often run the Moira, but they really do like putting all the control onto Visto to control those Ryan battles, and it seems like they're just going deeper into that. I mean, that's exactly what Zen does with the Brig together with that Reinhardt, so they should be able to win these out, but they just are not being afforded that just yet. Mini Kungan, as Zenyatta himself, has just been pushing Visto back completely every single time.
Oh, he was caught a little bit out of position, and now without a shield tank, T-Biscuits have to get way back, but they actually get caught in the middle of a Graviton that Rotten already has. So Osh-Tekk thought they could just storm in, but they walked right in the middle of a storm.
And you can see the difference in this tank battle, the control that Tea and Biscuits has in that. I mean, Battlemaster already with an Earth Shatter, Visto really kind of struggling, only at 50% right now. Some of that is in part due, of course, to the setups that we get from Philly and Mini Kunga, but on top of that, you also have Rotten coming through, huge energy, able to help Battlemaster sustain. Yes, he got caught out of position, but he has done a pretty good job of, getting and receiving those resources and doing a lot with it.
Well, another re-engagement, but it's the EMP that drops from T-Biscuits. This now allows no shields, no cooldowns, and Transcendence tried to save Osh-Tekk, but they will go for the reset, and now it's Tea and Biscuits up to 80%. We are in last fight territory. Osh-Tekk are depending so much on this upcoming Graviton.
I mean, this is another situation exactly. They have to rely on this Graviton, and is it going to be enough? We see Phillian kind of flanking around. They just don't have a good position to start this fight with, and they're still waiting for their D.Va. So, I mean, they have basically one shot, and it's going to be a really desperate attempt to just get to the point first of all.
But they lost Rotten, they lost Lynx. T-Biscuit are down in numbers. They had just used a rally, but the Sound Bear will give Osh-Tekk the advantage as they go on in. They'll have the Shatter, they'll have the Graviton, but they win this fight out only with the barrier. So Tea and Biscuits can't afford to give this one up. They built themselves to 99%. All they have to do is win one fight to take this first map of Nepal.
Here's the silver lining. Kassar did not have to utilize the Graviton in that last fight, so now we will see likely a duel, but I mean, we do see Mini Kunga already holding onto the Transcendence, so an answer is there. Osh-Tekk Warrior is probably not going to have too much after that, so to sustain in that kind of fight, it's going to be very difficult. They're going to have to rely on the rally, but there's the grab to start it off, and the self-destruct on top of it as well.
Oh, and it catches a few, and Osh-Tekk, they're able to keep surviving in this map of Nepal, and they'll even add on the rally to top up their numbers. And Team Biscuits, though, it's an economy fight for them, and they'll be walking in quite a few ultimates.
Patience is key, though. I mean, Team Biscuits are making sure that they hold on to everything until it's completely winnable. They're going to be able to unleash the power of basically every ult that they have. And I think Team Biscuits, we're just moments away from just seeing them kind of close things out, unless somehow Osh-Tekk Warriors can utilize that Transcendence and hold out long enough to find some openings like this.
Yeah, the Shatter, it's huge, but the Transcendence and Sound Barrier, or at least the Sound Barrier from T-Biscuits, allows them to get back in, but the Transcendence from Osh-Tekk also heals them a ton. Now it's the Shatter from T-Biscuits that go in. Transcendence from their side. They are coming in for this point. Can they retake? The answer is yes. Is Osh-Tekk going to be able to get back in time? Is someone there to touch? Jazafina would have been the answer, but he is dealt with, and T-Biscuits moments away in this overtime to take Nepal 100 to 70, 2-0 to go into our second map.
I mean, that just reminds you of like a lion stalking a gazelle, right? Osh-Tekk Warriors just kind of grazing in the grass on point, just, you know, trying to do anything they can. And then in a moment's time, you see the lion just come out of the grass, just lunging at them and just tear them to bits. I mean, what a complete gear shift that we saw there from Team Biscuits. As soon as they had all of those ultimates lined up, they had everything stacked up. They pulled that Transcendence out early. Again, that patience is so key with this team that we were able to see them kind of come together in that way and be able to provide, you know, tons of aggression, tons of lethality, and find those kills as quickly as they did to be able to get that quick 2-0.
Well, I think the difference between these two teams was the Sombra at the start for T and Biscuits, taking away those cooldowns, taking away the shields, and it's hard to say. Goats versus goats. We haven't seen much diversity from Osh-Tekk thus far.
Yeah, and that's actually a key point that you know, was kind of a takeaway from yesterday. I mean, something that we were concerned about coming into trials is what kind of compositions were we going to get out of Osh-Tekk? Are we going to see more than just the goats, or are we going to see, you know, some more dive? I mean, we have seen stuff from them in the past where we have seen other looks, but it hasn't been dynamic as of yet throughout trials. And this is kind of just our waiting game, I guess, to say for Osh-Tekk, are they going to be playing more dive? We saw a little bit of it yesterday, but it wasn't profoundly effective. We saw as well, you know, some Sombra themselves as well. We even saw 4-2, just quad tank setups. I mean, really kind of relying on the Moira to be, you know, a key factor, a key player in some of these setups. But given how strong Ana is, it's very easy to counter out. Especially given into a Moira where, you know, it's just based purely on sustained healing, and Ana shuts that down completely with the biotic grenade, that and just that, and the toolkit among other options as well. So, I mean, Osh-Tekk Warriors are in a tough spot right now because what is their best look is not something that's very, very, very strong in the meta anymore. I mean, you go back 3 months, yes, Osh-Tekk Warriors would be a very dominant powerhouse right now that would be certainly tough to contest. But as things have progressed, and as there have been changes and patches and teams adapting, and, you know, people getting more you know, practice and experience against these types of compositions, it's becoming less of a threat over time. So I think Osh-Tekk Warriors, we're looking at some kind of change in their composition, I think, to a degree, while also going into, you know, their setups and their execution, some of the plays that they're making. I mean, we're seeing T and Biscuits definitely outplaying them on the level of ultimate efficiency, timings, and making sure that they have everything and being patient. I mean, Osh-Tekk Warriors are stuck trying to play reactively, and with a composition like they're playing, you cannot be playing reactively. It's just not going to work. You have to be kind of creating the tempo with that composition. It's not happening.
And on Sanctum, we saw how much of an impact Lynx had on that Widowmaker. And my question before I came into the series and in Trials overall is, this Osh-Tekk, do they have that Widowmaker player? And on the team sheet, they have Lorp, one of their substitutes who's their Widowmaker specialist. Are they going to be substituting any players? And Osh-Tekk have some substitutes that they've been playing around with. They got Deadline, they got Lorp. Are we going to see an appearance of these players? Because I don't believe we saw them in the series yesterday versus British Hurricane. And just for the people at home that didn't catch trials yesterday, it was Osh-Tekk that lost, I believe, 4-0 to British Hurricane, and Tea and Biscuits also lost their match 3-1. So again, these are contenders, bottom contenders teams that they lost to. So Hurix, are these Tea and Biscuits and Osh-Tekk, are these teams you could see coming out of trials from Open Division?
At this point, I think we would have to see a very swift turnaround for Osh-Tekk to be in that consideration. I think it's really cool to see a team like this, from the Middle East, the players from Middle East that have shown that not only is this a region that has great talented players, but they have, a good amount of coordination as well. I mean, the synergy is there. You can see that there is some promise to come out of that region. And I'm really curious and really excited to see more of that. And again, I think a big swift turnaround in EU Contenders trials here is going to be necessary for them to be in that conversation of being able to make it out of trials. But Tea and Biscuits is a team that I'm kind of going to keep my eye on, I think, because yes, there are some teams that certainly you would in a power ranking list put above them. But I think Tea and Biscuits is a team that can turn things around for themselves and be able to be more of a contender, I guess, pardon the pun, of Contenders trials in this series, because I mean, and beyond, because I think going forward, they have talent, they have coordination. You see the coaching that's coming into play as well. I mean, look at the way that they played that last map. I mean, they were in full control throughout. Yes, you see it go up to like 70%, but that's just how you play control. You let them get that build up and then you just overpower them. That's what we see. It was clinical from Tea and Biscuits. So I think Tea and Biscuits, hard maybe. Osh-Tekk Warriors gonna have a swift turnaround going forward.
Well, the swift turnaround could happen on Eichenwald. It's currently 1-0 for Tea and Biscuits in this 4-map set. Osh-Tekk on the defense to start. Let's see what they're bringing out. They have Toxin on the Widowmaker players. So Hurix, I've been saying that I'm looking forward to see a Widow matchup, and it will be Lynx versus Toxin. Tea and Biscuits on the attack have Farah and Widowmaker with the dive.
Yeah, no Brig though, and Osh-Tekk, I mean, they like to play with Visto being kind of like the pivotal player, the person to have the impact, and without the Brig to set things up, it's going to be a lot more difficult, especially against the dive, where we do see Valmaster kind of being more aggressive. They aren't going to have that stun off. They're not going to have that instant pressure to kind of ward him off. Meanwhile, Minikunga on the Zenyatta as well will be able to put the pressure not only on Toxin, but also Vista.
And Toxin, it's good that they have this Widowmaker player out. They saw how much of an impact Philion had on that Pharah, at least on Sanctum, expecting this very famous Pharah map to, of course, have Philion bring that out again. And Toxin hasn't had any line of sight on him, trying to get any shots that he can, but isn't finding much and is actually getting dove from the tanks from Tea and Biscuits.
Yeah, and remember that if Toxin finds a pick, Webster's in the sky ready to res as well, so it's a huge threat to him as well.
Oh, this opens up the barrage from Philion, and now they can start to push onto the point. Taking out Kassar, and you got the Lucio gone, but they lost Lynx, so it's a half-and-half battle, but Tea and Biscuits have already secured themselves one tick. Visto just trying to break or stall out some time, but now Osh-Tekk are stuck in this house with no shield, and that's just free rockets for Philion.
I mean, the preparation going into this match, you can tell that Tea and Biscuits did their due diligence. They did their homework. Philion just going to be staying on Pharah as often as they can possibly be allowed, because going up to Osh-Tekk, you know that they're going to be playing as much goats as they possibly can. And here we finally see that switch. We finally see them going over to dive, where Kassar is going to be playing that Genji. We saw this a little bit against British Hurricane. Again, not profoundly effective, but maybe this will be the moment here where they find that a way to be effective up against Tea and Biscuits, who are kind of playing a dive themselves as well. I mean, they have targets to jump on. Webster and Minikunga are vulnerable targets.
It's an issue if Lynx can't get on this high ground with the rest of Tea and Biscuits. So Osh-Tekk are able to rotate around this high ground, and they've been commanding it thus far, taking already one support out of Tea and Biscuits. Webster's Valkyrie didn't get that much of a push going, but somehow Lynx got onto this high ground and has been messing everybody up. Tea and Biscuits now starting to hold these choke points in Castle.
Look how aggressive they're able to sit up here as well. I mean, taking a duel against Widow as a McCree, not going to really work out in his favor this time around, and Osh-Tekk Warrior is going to go ahead and put that thing into drive now, try to get something going, because they needed to do something with this 5v6 advantage that they have.
Oh, is he gonna drop the barrier there? The Primal from Team Biscuits could cause a few environmental kills, and he's getting pressured, and Team Biscuits aren't really helping out their Winston player, but he's still managing to get kills. Taking out Toxin means so much more freedom now for Filion if he wanted to come for that barrage, but you can see how far behind he is. The payload isn't moving, but Jasafina finds Ballmaster out of his bubble, and Filion drops the barrage, and you got a Dragon Blade. It's going after a Flying Mercy. Doesn't manage to get that jump. That's a little bit unlucky. Could get the finish onto the Diva, and Osh-Tekk trying to hold this defense. The payload has gotten close to the castle doorway, but Team Biscuits need a solid reset here.
Yeah, good on Team Biscuits to make sure that they were able to get some value out of that fight, lasting that long. They were able to push it very, very close to the end there. Now coming back, they do have Lynx on the Widow to contest Toxin now, and that's a more direct contest. And I think Lynx in this matchup is going to be able to do wonders up against Toxin, and this should give them an advantage. I mean, they already have one after the Genji kill.
Okay, Lynx in position now as the Widowmaker will get a lot of, a lot of nothing because Toxin just took him out. Now Toxin can focus on taking care of, actually, Filion switches to the Brigitte a little bit early, so this will deal with some of the dive, and not only the dive, but the Genji player Kassar is going to get booped around from this Brigitte. So Transcendence tries to get Team Biscuits in a solid position, tries to get this cart pressure going. Then you got a sleep from, oh no, Valmaster gets slept there into the back. So Team Biscuits will have to keep this pressure going without any tanks, because now Rotten just got demacked. So 2 minutes and 20 left. Team Biscuits will have to reset it. Or maybe not, because Minikunk is popping off, so that was a fight.
And that was so important for Minikunk to come out of on top as well, because he had to use his Transcendence in that fight. Kassar was able to generate his blade, so he needs to get that back up very quickly, or else they're going to be looking at a Nano Blade from Kassar and Sir Majed that is going to be a huge problem for them. And without the Transcendence, they don't realistically have an answer. So outside of Lynx maybe just kind of slowing things down with a couple of picks onto the Genji, they're going to be in trouble in this next fight.
Oh, you got a self-destruct into the back. There's no shields except for Brigitte, but it's the Nano Blade time. Kassar goes towards the back. There's all the supports. Takes out Filion, takes out Webster, going for more blood. The D-Mech is there, and now the Widowmaker's the last on the hit list. And Kassar has commanded this game as the Genji. What a great swap that Osh-Tekk had made earlier on. They'll hold this defense for now, but 3 minutes left for T-Biscuits to push to C.
I still really do like this play, or this pick of the Genji, but I think here they start making swaps once again to maybe go back over to the goats that they're more familiar with here, and that is exactly what they're going to do. We see Kassar going over, Sir Majed also going over to Zen. I actually thought he was going to stick with the Moira, but not the case. He goes over to the Zen instead, again trying to empower the fight against the Reinhardt, and that again still has been a little bit of a struggle for them. Team Biscuits charging in though, and it's going to be an all-out brawl on top of the self-destruct. Oh, that's a big one.
The stun from Filion allowed that to happen. That's a double kill. Team Biscuits taking out half of Osh-Tekk. There's a sound rail left from Beacon. Does he want to use it? That's gonna be so important for Osh-Tekk's re-engage. And at least Jasafina dying on card bot a few seconds for reinforcements to come in. And now the team or the defense is back. The barrier is dropped. 4 members from the defense rushing in towards T-Biscuits who have a leftover Transcendence, but it doesn't save Valmaster, and it's actually not used at all. So very interesting choice here from the offense to just completely retreat after that.
It's super important. I think the most important person to come away from this fight still alive is Lynx, because he's just going to be just barreling in right clicks this entire time on high charge. He's going to be able to generate his Graviton Surge, and that's going to be massive because they don't have an answer on the side of Osh-Tekk Warriors. They just don't have anything available, and with their Goats comp, they're going to be obviously sticking very close together, so we can find high value in that, just cleaving through with Valmaster, and again, look for Filion to set up that big stun on top of it as well.
Okay, Graviton ready for Lynx, but is there enough damage to come on through? Or Sir Majid doesn't have the Transcendence yet. Self-destruct is actually responding to the Graviton, and not enough kills are rolling through. Visto is down for the defense. Toxin has the rally to keep these shields up for Visto to come back in time. Uses the rally now. T-Biscuits looking at the end of the barrel of point C with 52 seconds left. Rotten is going to drop that self-destruct, try and make some room, and actually takes out Toxin with that. Osh-Tekk fighting with everything they can to stay on this payload, but it's not going to be enough. Visto charges the payload. He is the last one remaining. T and Biscuits looking to close Eichenwald, but it's never the end because now you got a Desperation Hammond, Toxin spiraling around, but he gets chunked down. A Salbear from Beacon again. So this is even more stall power from Osh-Tekk's defense. They just keep barreling in and stalling this payload, bringing it down to a 15-second time bank for T and Biscuits to finish.
I still think going into that last fight, T and Biscuits actually one of their first real hiccups, I think, in terms of executing a strategy and going in. It was on them to set the pace very quickly. They had the advantage of having Link's high charge with the Graviton well ahead of Kassar. They had a good, probably like 10-second window, maybe 5-second window of an opportunity for Lynx to drop that and again, just set that pace very early, be the aggressor in that fight. But as soon as they kind of toyed around, allowed Kassar the time to generate his ult, then they allowed Kassar to, drop it first. That becomes more of a struggle because Lynx goes around himself and tries to solo the entire backline inside of his grab that he drops. And it's not as connected and as cohesive as we're used to seeing T and Biscuits in a lot of these team fights. So going forward, I would definitely like to see them, not making those kinds of errors because we just haven't seen that so far from them today. I don't expect that. I mean, certainly seems like a fluke, but Osh-Tekk, obviously we have seen some glimmers of hope here. I mean, they were bringing this down to 15 seconds, a great stall at the very end. They struggled early on, dealing with Filion on the Pharah, and that was a problem for them. But as soon as we see them swap over to the dive, it was actually a lot more effective than what we saw against British Hurricane. They were able to win a couple of fights there. And on top of that, the Genji was looking pretty solid as well from Kassar. So, all things said and done, I think at least now we've seen some more dynamic compositional play coming out from Osh-Tekk Warriors. And now starting things off with that same kind of 3-3 Moira. There's obviously going to have a problem with the cylinder. They're obviously going to have a problem with the Pharah. Expect very quick swaps here over to the dive to deal with T and Biscuits, I think, if this first push doesn't work.
Sombra and Pharah, yeah, exactly right. That, well, maybe this Goats might struggle with at least one of the projectiles from T and Biscuits, but they have that Lucio boost, but actually not anymore. He gets chunked down early there from the dive from Bombmaster. Now they get trapped into this corridor, and this is not the engage they wanted whatsoever. And Filion pops up on Eichenwald every single time. He already has 80% barrage.
No way they stick with this, right? I mean, there's no way. I mean, they see that they're already struggling to deal with that, with everything that's being thrown at them, and there's no real way for this to change outside of a coalescence being generated. But when there's that kind of pressure on your supports and not as much your tanks early on, it's harder to get those heals out for Sir Majed to actually generate the coalescence early and put that pressure out. Barrage already ready for Billion as well.
Oh, and he's looking at a bunch of supports, drops it down, but what a reaction from Jazafina. Really matrixes a lot of that damage, and Billion gets taken out in the process. Jazafina losing mech, but they take out Webster, so Osh-Tekk could try and engage off of this. They just have to deal with Valmaster now onto this Winston. Self-destruct left from Jazafina, or actually Rotten as well. And it takes out 2, so what a re-engage from T and Biscuits, but 2 ticks already for Osh-Tekk. They're trying to close this out right here, but Nano Boost onto Valmaster, chases Kassar, won't be able to get away with the energy he had earned.
Really good way to get re-entry onto that point. I mean, Webster was the martyr that they needed there to allow Filion to come back into that fight. Now, though, it's going to be Osh-Tekk re-entering the engagement, and they have everybody behind them.
Well, they're going in, and Valmaster out of hop. You can see he's the focus of their fire. Valkyrie from Webster to try and keep T and Biscuits healed up during this engagement. Visto being down, he had Shatter. This was what Osh-Tekk really relying on, unless they want to engage with Kassar's Graviton, but the answer is no. They want to clean engage with all of their members not being picked off early.
Has to be a big EMP here for Team Biscuits if they don't want to lose this point outright right now. But if they can get that done, then they have a decent shot at contesting this for another fight. Once that Graviton comes down, though, I think it's all over. I just don't think they have the right answers to it, unless it's just not a great Graviton, or it somehow gets eaten up by Rotten.
Oh.
That would be a huge play.
It's a bit of a split engage from Osh-Tekk. You see Vistos to the left and the rest of the team are to the right. This causes Kassar to get pounced on. Visto trying to help out, but now Sir Majed has gone. That's a lot of your healing, but There is a sound barrier in the hack though. Visto couldn't shatter and couldn't do anything but hold his left click. So Osh-Tekk wasn't the most organized push. Now they're down to their last minute and 15 to just unlock the payload.
I mean, if they wind up full holding here, they're going to look back at this fight right there because Team Biscuits were able to win out on a fight that they should have had to use ults without utilizing anything. I mean, they barely had to use their regular cooldowns. Now they have all those same options. They still have the barrage. They still have EMP. They have everything that they had going into the last fight, but now they have more answers to deal with the Graviton and a lot of the offensive threats that Osh-Tekk is bringing into this next engagement.
It's all about who's gonna pull the trigger first. Is it gonna be the EMP or the barrage or the Graviton? It's EMP first. It opens up the barrage. Thankfully, there's a little bit of shield, but he still manages to get at least 3 picks. Toxin responds with a little flail shot onto Filion. So Osh-Tekk trying to engage. They don't look like they want to reset here. They're gonna keep this one going. They use the coalescence. They just use the rally. Visto would drop the shadow early, and Osh-Tekk have to quickly not get staggered. 15 seconds left, and they're looking for a Graviton with Team Biscuits overextending here.
Oh, it's so hard to get the Graviton off when you just got that monkey in your face. And he swallows up the Graviton too, so it's just the Winston inside of it. Now they have to struggle to get to the point too.
You just Kassar 8 HP, you just see Visto flying in, pinning somebody. Taking out Mini Kunga though, that's some healing god. You still have Webster up in the air, that resurrects that support player, but Team Biscuits C9 it. Osh-Tekk got the payload there, and Team Biscuits just got staggered off of all of that. So what a miracle that Osh-Tekk just pulled off. We get to see some more Icon Ball.
I mean, that seemed so winnable for Team Biscuits. The setup was there. They had everything sorted, but fell right through their fingertips. And now Osh-Tekk, an opportunity here to push this through ever more. And now we will see them going forward still with this same exact composition. Look for Mini Kunga to get some really pivotal biotic grenades in these fights, because we've seen that a couple of times. It has gone, a little bit silent, but Mini Kunga has been a huge threat to this, because again, Moira with that sustained healing really relies on not getting purpled and anti-healed all the time, and that's just exactly what's been happening.
It's just been barrage after barrage for Filion because there's no hit scan to go after him. Now you gotta coalesce it. Oh, what movement from Filion, then he actually doesn't boost back up. Or maybe Kassar finished off the kill. I'm not sure which one it was, but Osh-Tekk looked like they had some trouble there. They're actually pushing the payload towards the end. Now they're holding those 2 chokes.
Such a good fight for them too. Again, that it was just so prolonged that they were able to just keep pushing this exactly the same way we saw Team Biscuits.
Well, Link's getting that EMP, catching Osh-Tekk, who are overextending, trying to push onto those chokes, but Kassar has that Graviton, and if they leave the payload there, that might be tough to re-engage on, especially with a minute left.
Yeah, Valmaster and Rotten are doing everything they can to keep this fight going, but Rotten lost his mech already, and now Filion's back in. Can he provide the pressure? Self-destruct going up.
Doesn't catch much, it's bubbled, but gives enough time for Osh-Tekk to try and re-engage. Kassar, where are you at? He's to the right, looking for that Graviton. It's that game-winning ultimate, but actually they managed to push the payload. It's just a few meters away. Team Biscuits have to stay onto this payload. Don't see Knighted again. It's Rotten that has to use the self-destruct. He's back onto it. There's only 2 members from the defense left. Osh-Tekk do not want to use any ultimates here, and they managed to win this out cleanly to go to the end of point C with 2 minutes left.
Holding on to the necessary resources that they need for this next fight to come around this corner as well. And it's this next corner that's so important. And to be ahead like this, to have that momentum to push forward with, that's going to be huge for Osh-Tekk. I think they close this out in just 2 fights now. They have the tools that Graviton put right on top of the Coalescence. I think they've combined those 2 for this next fight, and this will be huge for them.
I don't think they're going to get another fight out of this because it takes time to push this payload all the way to the end, and if they lose, it's quite a walk back to this point. Kassar is just waiting for this Graviton. He launches it in. Now everyone's trying to come on in. Visto with the pin, taking out the main shield, allows all of this damage to rain through on Team Biscuits, but there's Lynx coming back with the EMP. This is going to matter if the defense are going to come back, but is there anyone going to touch the payload? No one is there. Oh my god, it was 0.7 seconds. I was about to have a heart attack, but it doesn't matter because my heart attack is there, and Osh-Tekk finished the map when they almost didn't even get the payload.
Yeah, they didn't even they struggled to unlock it, but it was, I mean, that second push looked good for them, right? They were able to get 2 ticks off of it. It was just a really solid re-engage from Tea and Biscuits that disallowed that from occurring. And then all of a sudden, Osh-Tekk, off the back of just a hugely momentum shifting fight where they unlocked the payload and then just kind of stalled the engagement. I mean, realistically speaking, Tea and Biscuits never really had an opportunity to regroup until that final fight, right as they came around the corner of that third objective, where finally, you know, they were able to get together. But at that point, they already had, I mean, Osh-Tekk already had all the tools, like I was talking about. So Osh-Tekk looking really solid, I think, towards the latter half of their attack, obviously. You know, yes, we may not have seen them, you know, doing too much adaptation in terms of composition, but with the GOATS comp attacking a hybrid map like this, going for first point, it's just a matter of time until you get it, unless there are crucial mistakes, crucial errors being made. However, Osh-Tekk, I think the big takeaway from me, at least, is their ultimate efficiency. Something that we saw them really stepping up so far in this map is the difference in how they were utilizing ultimates in the, you know, the first one on Nepal versus now on their attack, where we're seeing, I actually even mentioned it, where it was just one ult to take that. They didn't use the coalescence because they didn't have to. That is really smart stuff from them. Patience is key here, and against Tea and Biscuits, a really tough matchup for them. They have to continue to do that.
Well, it's fair coming back for Philly and Lynx with the McCree, and kind of surprised not to see the Widowmaker player gonna try and use that stun to open up that shield from Visto, not having that Brigida player. Osh-Tekk on this defense. It's down to the last 30 seconds. They just have to hold this here if they want to put themselves in a good position to take this map. It's 1-0 for Tea and Biscuits. Toxin almost finding the shots onto Philly. Webster could have been there for the resurrect, but it's the defense that already taken out one tank. Tea and Biscuits already retreating, losing Ballmaster right after that. They do not have time to waste. 10 seconds left. And now the Coalescence trying to find some stagger kills. It's not going to happen quite yet. But now Osh-Tekk have to be careful with overextending like this. Visto has to get back. Is anyone there to touch? And actually, no, there isn't. Osh-Tekk hold this defense.
All right, winnable for Osh-Tekk here. And an opportunity to tie things up going into the half. And I'm really looking at seeing how they want to approach this next one, because we know that they struggled initially with the GOAT startup, where they were playing into the Sombra and Pharah matchup. Tea and Biscuits could certainly pull that out once again. I mean, you have to imagine Osh-Tekk is going to want to pull out the GOATs. The only other look that we've seen from them that's been, you know, really solid and looked cohesive is, you know, the Ana-based dive. But I wouldn't really expect to see that here. I think they would be really throwing Tea and Biscuits for a loop if they did wind up pulling out a Genji with an Ana here. However, it looks like they might opt for something different. It's hard to tell if they're, you know, just looking around and seeing what their options may be, or if they actually are going to go for something a little bit of a different take, I guess. I mean, expecting a Pharah wouldn't be out of the ordinary to put out a McCree, but I mean, Tea and Biscuits is going right for the play of dealing with Visto right off the bat. I mean, they're playing Minikunga back onto that Zenyatta. This could be a really good, a really smart play from Tea and Biscuits to not go for the Pharah and just play the dive themselves and play off of the fact that the coordination between Phillian and Valmaster is simply better than Toxin and Visto from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, they don't want to risk this Pharah because you need that sort of point presence with Phillian on this Brigida. It's going to be able to open up Visto, as you said, or go after any of the supports if they are to be seen too forward. So Osh-Tekk get a look here. And they're seeing a mirror matchup. So is this what they want to engage on? Do they want to bring out their own Pharah? Are they going to want to swap? So they look like they're comfortable.
Zenyatta.
You know, we talked about, you know, they played a lot of GOATs in trials. So now they're like, okay, I think we might be better at GOATs. So they go towards the right, waiting for the speed boost here. And they just ignore them. They go towards the left, rotate around. Tea and Biscuits are there. This is just mirror positions, mirror stuns. And now Kassar has to be careful to protect Visto. Anyone who goes down could ultimately spell the end of this fight. Down to the last minute, Toxin is down.
Oh, they clash into each other. That opens up both the Reinhardts, and Visto is the one that gets discorded. So I like the approach there, though, from Osh-Tekk Warriors, where they're going back and forth. That allows misplays to happen positionally from Tea and Biscuits, because, you know, those supports are just going back and forth, left and right, trying to stay insulated inside of their tanks. But They just weren't able to catch anyone there, and Team Biscuits came out ahead, again, with that better coordination with Villian and
Oh,
Minikunga.
it gets eaten! The grab from Lynx just got eaten, and now Valmaster is down. Osh-Tekk used the Transcendence to go towards the left. This could be how they even up the series right here. Toxin needs to win this duel, and they do. The Transcendence from the defense tries to keep Lynx and Rotten off, but the self-destruct from Jazafina could blow everybody away, and it does. Rotten is down. Kassar finishes off the Zenyatta. Osh-Tekk even up the series here on Eichenwald when it looks like they could have lost.
I mean, that was in Team Biscuits' hand, and Osh-Tekk Warriors have stolen it away. I mean, they have been able to not only take the first point where they struggled initially, but they win out as well with the better time bank and the better fight right at the end, where they were able to eat the Graviton Surge. I mean, that's huge for them. I would honestly say, like, in terms of looking at some of the plays that had the most impact, you're looking at eating the Graviton Surge at the end, and the huge positional setup that we saw with them approaching the fight towards their first point attack at the very end, where they were able to capture that. So huge plays on Osh-Tekk Warriors' part. Team Biscuits just falling a little bit short there.
Well, we have a quick halftime so we can go through the maps that we have seen. It's 1-1, and it's Labasco, Kenobi, and Vowels. We'll tell you all about it.
Thank you very much, Lemon Kiwi here. It's good stuff for the first half. Guys, an intense end to Eichenwald there. It's tied up 1-1 now. We saw Goats versus Goats at the end there, 2 3-3 comps, and we saw Osh-Tekk win that one, but it looked like it was going to be Tea and Biscuits. They had the Graviton Surge. It gets eaten. One of the things we wanted to talk about pregame, obviously we didn't have time, was the Rhine-centered comp versus the Zarya-centered comp, and the Zarya-centered comp was working, but the Graviton Surge, which is the important thing, gets eaten. Vowels, how is that? How do you let that happen if you're the side of Tea and Biscuits?
You get complacent, and I feel like that's what we've seen from Tea and Biscuits all throughout Eichenwald. They absolutely stomped Nepal off the back of some great performances by Fillion and Lynx. They had that mindset going into Eichenwald of, this is a pretty easy matchup, we're the dominant team. We saw that through the first half of Eichenwald, and then right at the last second, trying to cap first point on Osh-Tekk's first offense, something just clicked. Something just meshed. I particularly want to shout out Jazafina on the Diva for suddenly stepping up and completely changing how he was playing to shut down Lynx. And from there on out, Osh-Tekk were just a completely different team. Team Biscuits, sure, they got a bit complacent, and I feel like that is a huge part of why they lost. But Osh-Tekk are looking like a much better team as well, and we're going to see a much more competitive second half to the series.
It's been very competitive, and you could be a competitive broadcaster if you bring yourself to Broadcast.gg. We help you grow as a broadcaster. You're constantly creating opportunities for exposure and practice like this one, and are collaborating on resources to push esports forward. So if you have a love for esports and you'd like to share it with us, be sure to join up in the Discord. There is a link in the panel down below. Kenobi, looking at the side of Tea and Biscuits here, they looked really dominant on Nepal. You heard Vowels say they got complacent. What needs to happen for them going into this second half to turn things around? I mean, we see that they've had some comps that have worked really well. The fair comp worked really well for them. There didn't seem to be the best of answer there for Osh-Tekk, but then they started to have an answer. What do you want to see from Tea and Biscuits?
What I want to see from Team Biscuits is just, Val's mentioned it before, not get that complacent. We talk about how sometimes, we were talking in between matches about why they're running Pharah again, because they've thought, oh, it worked really well on the first map, and we're just going to do this again, roll over the enemy team when we really don't have that much time. And Pharah is a character where you bank a lot on barrage and getting 1 or 2 picks, but when you have someone like Toxin, who's on the Widowmaker, pressuring you and basically taking it to a 2v1, Vals was mentioning during the game, taking it to a 2v1. So basically it's a 5v4 for the rest of the team of Osh-Tekk to just run over you. It's a very bad decision on their part. And Jaza, I said Jazu. Jaza has been really stepping up his diva play so far. Ate that grab, and then what I really liked from him was he was pressuring the Pharah much more than he had been further, because Tea and Biscuits was running Pharah basically non-contested throughout most of the map, and then Jaza finally was starting to pressure him and make sure that he wasn't just free farming barrage every single fight. So I think adaptability from Tea and Biscuits is something I like to see a little bit more of, which Osh-Tekk was their issue what happened yesterday, and now they seem to be doing a really good job of making sure that they're counter-picking the enemy team. So I think Osh-Tekk is definitely stepping up in this matchup.
Vowels, what needs to continue for Osh-Tekk to keep that momentum that they just gained from the previous map?
don't give Philly and Lynx a way back into this. We know Philly and Lynx can both effectively solo carry Team Biscuits. If you can keep shutting them down the way you were the second half of Eichenwald, easy game.
We know that our next two map types are going to have Assault, and we're also going to have Payload. We're going to Volskaya next, though, so we're going to throw it back to Lemon Kiwi and Heroics as we continue here on EU Contenders Trials.
Welcome back, guys. We're going into map 3 shortly, but here's what a series that we have between Osh-Tekk and and Biscuits. Both these teams coming from open division, they just have so much to prove. Osh-Tekk has some fat wallets right now with their tournament win. I think it was the Saudi Arabia regional tournament where they took, was it 138K in euros, and converting that into all the other currencies you guys know of. So they have a lot. They have some fat wallets right now. T and Biscuits have a few tournament wins. They have a few $1,000s, a little bit less, but both these teams have so much to prove.
Yeah, and that's I think the main topic of discussion going into this matchup was the fact that they do have so much to prove, and this is their biggest opportunity, the best stage that they have to prove something against a team more, I guess, at their levels, their respective levels. So I think going into this matchup, both Osh-Tekk Warriors and Team Biscuits really need to kind of set the tone going forward. Who is the team to look at as the possible kind of wild card going forward in Contenders Trials? Obviously, we have the powerhouses. We have, the Copenhagen Flames coming into this with the big names. We have, big names, obviously British Hurricane being an academy team looking to fire back from an upset that happened last season in Contenders for themselves. But these are the names that you want to keep an eye on as possible wild cards, possible teams to really look at to, I think, really kind of gauge who's going to be the threats going forward. But as we look into this matchup already, we're looking already now at a Widow v Widow matchup. Dive versus Osh-Tekk still bringing out that tank heavy style, but obviously with the Widowmaker, they're really going to be relying on those picks. So they can't be as aggressive here, I think, unless they're really trying to create space for Toxin. I think that might open things up for the double sniper of Team Biscuits to, I guess, create some room for themselves. And as long as their tanks are elusive here, I think Osh-Tekk are going to struggle to find picks early.
Was the double sniper from Team Biscuits too. So if we see Toxin, already winning one, I was gonna say that's kind of a disadvantage, but you have a Mercy who can also power. Oh my God, Toxin, you just kind of take out. It's 2 versus 1, and Toxin's making this look easy. Okay, now he's up against the Hanzo, but he's getting pressure from all angles. The defense extending into the backline, but Osh-Tekk meanwhile are having a little nap on the point, and they've already got themselves a tick. Team Biscuits looking to re-engage, but because Osh-Tekk are playing that Zarya, they can actually melt through Rotten, they can melt through Ballmaster. He's getting towards that high charge, and Osh-Tekk, within the first fight, have taken point A.
That was such a good approach to that fight too, and Team Biscuits, I mean, really struggled to figure out what they wanted to do quickly and then act on it appropriately. Toxin was the threat in the backline. Took them a long time to deal with it. Once they did, they just allowed Osh-Tekk to just get full control of the point against that, again, tank heavy, support heavy style composition. It's so hard to retake against it. So Team Biscuits now really far behind in terms of momentum and still trying to deal with Toxin on this Widowmaker.
Toxin, they're going towards the left. This is really not a common route that you see going towards point B. But what an anti-heal though. I think it catches almost everyone from this offense. Now they use the Coalescence once that's gone away to try and make up for that healing, but they have already lost Visto. No Resurrect, no Mercy for that. Osh-Tekk actually come towards the backside, so they could still try and engage on this. They've wounded the tanks from the defense, who now have to use a primal to pressure this doorway that Osh-Tekk want to come through. Self-destruct though. Can they even get away? Thankfully, Sir Majed could fade out of that one, but they've given this point up. Team Biscuits will hold this defense.
Somehow, some way, they're able to hold that one out. But coming into the next fight, Kassar does have that Graviton. They're going to have Visto ready to go pretty soon with that Earthshatter as well. So it's really going to come down to Team Biscuits playing for control here. EMP will come up pretty soon. They have the vision to check on which entryway we're going to see Osh-Tekk come through. Obviously, that's something that they would probably have regardless because of the nature of Volskaya, how this operates. There's not going to really be any surprises in terms of rotational plays coming out from Osh-Tekk. But again, Team Biscuits having the right kind of answers from their supports and the EMP ready to go, I think is going to be very pivotal going into this next fight to try to shut down Osh-Tekk. Again, just look for Toxin, though, to make these plays on the Widowmaker. He has the infosight himself to be able to set up.
This is how you enable your Widow. You just stack all of the 5 other team members on top of him, so they just
Ain't no dive coming your way.
body blocking. Yeah, this is his crew, his posse, just helping him onto that high ground, and now they're gonna hop on over. Remember that graviton is still available for Kassar when they're going to use it. They've already taken off Webster. Transcendence is available, but the EMP drops and the Transcendence at the same time. Tea and Biscuits start to push towards the right side. The graviton is missed. It only catches the Sombra. You still got the kills you need. Now you need to go after Volmaster. You need to pressure this point. Osh-Tekk, they've already gotten a tick. The time bank is huge. That sleep is huger though. Taking out Visto, he gets woken up. It's the nano onto Volmaster that tries to keep this point still alive for Tea and Biscuits. He has the primal. That's even more stall power that Tea and Biscuits have. Lynx comes back with the Doomfist, a little bit more punching power that this defense needs. As Osh-Tekk, as they've lost Visto, they start to disengage.
I think that was still a fight Tea and Biscuits should have won a little bit more handily, and Osh-Tekk are able to come away with a tick. 4 minutes, just over that actually, as Osh-Tekk are making adjustments to the composition, and it's going to be Kassar back on the Genji, so they're going for that Ana-Genji connection once again. Toxin on the Sombra to make those flanking plays, and we see Tea and Biscuits. I mean, Lynx is sticking with this Doomfist, so this is going to be some straight-up dive v dive, something that we really haven't seen much of or would have expected much of from Osh-Tekk and Tea and Biscuits going into this matchup, but despite that, here it is.
Well, the Kassar, I'm a little bit worried about Genji versus Doomfist, how that's gonna go, and Sombra versus Sombra, all about that scouting. You see Toxin towards the left, knows exactly where the supports are hanging out at, trying to get assassination kill through that. Now Osh-Tekk, they use the barrier and they jump on in, only catches a few. You can see a bit of a disorganized dive from Osh-Tekk, who have already lost Visto. They get that kill onto Mini Kunga. It's a 1-to-1 trade, but now the defense, they start to falter. They've lost their tanks, and Osh-Tekk start to engage. It's Kassar getting the finishing kill onto the Sombra. This could be Osh-Tekk's chance now. They got a boost, yo. This means they win the map, right, guys? So Toxin has the EMP, but it's not going to be used quite yet. Possibly after this Transcendence is done, it tries to reestablish Tea and Biscuits, who set us up to struck towards the back. It could be big. It actually catches Sir Majed on that Ana. That's a lot of healing gone. The EMP is dropped for Osh-Tekk. It's still a winnable fight for them. They want that second tick, and they use the blade to make it happen. Goes after the Doomfist and gets that finish as well. Goes after the Primal Rage. There's so much health to chunk through. Osh-Tekk are investing so many ultimates into this fight, about to get a second round of ultimates on top of that. There's 2 minutes and 30 left, and Tea and Biscuits are still here to engage.
And Beckenbauer is going to have the backup of the sound barrier too, should they need it, but looks like they're just going to come away from this fight just not even getting a tick, which I think is dismal for Osh-Tekk, who really should have been able to get something done there. Tea and Biscuits just staying composed throughout and not even really dealing with anything too effectively. I mean, Kassar popped off with that blade as well, was able to get a lot done, but still Tea and Biscuits just finding those couple of trickled kills, and that's all that they needed with their spawn advantage.
Yeah, losing Sir Majed kind of really stifled Osh-Tekk's push. Needed that extra healing to make it through those long battles. But now they've accumulated quite a few ultimates as Visto starts to dive towards the left, and he drops a Doomfist. I got the bigger fist. I'm the better man. And he finishes off that kill. But Tea and Biscuits have already gotten 2. It's an equal trades, but tanks missing from both sides. Osh-Tekk, this won't be the cleanest engage right off the bat. You can see they already disengaged, but Hurix, they could be working towards an EMP blade for the next fight.
Yeah, and I think that's something that they're going to need to pull off effectively. If it's not succinct, if it's not almost literally perfect, we're going to see Mini Kunga come out with that Transcendence, should be able to block off most of that damage outside of, just those insta-kills that we're going to see, obviously because of the nano-boosted damage increase. Outside of that, I mean, Osh-Tekk is going to really struggle to find kills and prove to be lethal in this next fight, especially with Lynx providing that extra little bit of pressure. Also has that disengage or an ability to re-engage with his Meteor as well.
Let's see how many times you see a sneaky Doomfist come. I mean, that's not somebody you want crawling out of your closet at night. That would also be really creepy. And Osh-Tekk, they'll engage and they'll just forget about that. Usually it's your Summer that does all the scouting, but Nano and a Blade, what a sleep from Webster! Oh my god, is this ML7 or something? And he just goes and does his own thing, and that Blade will be completely wasted. But you use the Transcendence for good measure. As 20 seconds left, Osh-Tekk were depending on this winning combination. and I don't know if they'll be able to get back on time. We'll see. The Tracer can touch.
Oh, they forced the recall, and then he gets sent up into the air, so there's no way that he's going to be able to make it in time. And I think with that kill on the Tracer, they pretty much have shut out any hopes of Osh-Tekk being able to make it, especially as the Winston turned his head there as well to try to deal with Lynx, and just that miscommunication, or rather that misappropriation of resources, denied them the opportunity to fight for it. I mean, that was pretty much all but gone there anyways, but still a great first point, but then shut down quickly by Tea and Biscuits on the second. And I think mostly due to just that level of composure that we saw from them.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at their ability to retake. It's not something that we've seen just this once as well. I mean, you look back at Eichenwald, and it's something that happened there as well on that first point where, you know, they almost lost it on that second fight, but they were able to recompose and almost hold it out completely. Let's see if maybe this one will have a different result than Eichenwald for Tea and Biscuits, or maybe Osh-Tekk Warriors can hold out themselves. But they will be playing the dive, it seems, to start things off defensively, which is interesting because oftentimes you would probably expect them to still play the goats, which is something I think Tea and Biscuits was playing into with this map, because on Volskaya, the goats on at least point A is very easy to play against, especially if you can take the high ground from them, especially with a dive. I think that's something that we're going to see from Tea and Biscuits as well, just diving, like soft diving to push Osh-Tekk off of their initial holding area, and then just going for a hard dive into their backline, primarily onto the Ana, I think would be the hard target, to allow for the re-engage from Osh-Tekk Warriors to be instead onto their tanks, so that then all of a sudden you see Lynx with a lot of room to work with for sniping. And I think that's probably going to be the main thing that's going to set the tone for them, as long as the Genji Kassar plays is focusing as the tanks are, Visto and Jazafina, onto Valmaster and Rotten as they dive forward, which I imagine Valmaster is going to swap to the Winston, then that is a big opportunity for Lynx to just kind of do a lot with that. However, Valmaster is on the Orisa for right now. Not what I expected at all.
No, it's kind of a slow tank. Well, you got Webster on the Lucio. You just don't see Orisas on attack. That's your it's a very not mobile shield. You're supposed to set that up on the defense, and now you got to keep readjusting that shield. And I mean, same thing with Visto, technically with the Winston. You got to move your bubble around, but it's a very interesting type of offense that Tea and Biscuits are running, and they have Lynx on the McCree instead of the Widow. And I was actually surprised we're not going to see the Widow versus Widow, because I think that really set the pace for both teams on that last map. So now Tea and Biscuits, they use that Orisa shield to just guide them through hallway to hallway. They go towards this high ground where they want to set up Lynx, and Osh-Tekk will have to decide how they who's going to be the target of their push.
I mean, Visto can't engage. Straight up, Visto cannot engage at all. If he goes in at all, he will be stunned off by a Brig and then stunned off by a McCree. So he's just stuck here. You can see him just kind of waddling around underneath. He doesn't want to do anything until Tea and Biscuits make the first move.
Oh, he sees a Juicy Mercy who's anti-healed in sight, but knows that Brigitte's around the corner. You've got to be very terrified of a Brigitte. If you want a scary costume for Halloween, please dress up as Brigitte, because I think that's the ultimate fear. And now, a Deadeye from the sky. It's going to clear out the entire point. This almost allows them to get a full tick. But now, there's a Nano onto Visto, who's going after the backline. Somewhere, somehow, Lynx gets a stun onto the Diva, and it's just trying to protect this high ground. And this dive has failed for Osh-Tekk to engage on this high ground. So now Tea and Biscuits can pressure their Brigitte and their supports to start taking the point, and slowly but surely, Tea and Biscuits have gotten point A.
I mean, their dive fails, but it's by design. Tea and Biscuits, I mean, came out with the exact composition that they needed to come through with to deal with Osh-Tekk Warriors. I mean, Kassar plays, comes forward, Visto comes forward, stunned off, discorded onto as well. I mean, Orisa just pulls them back in. It's such a struggle to actually get in there and do anything.
Oh, the blade! Oh, the EMP! This is Osh-Tekk's defense coming right in, takes care of the supercharger, and trying to go past that shield. You gotta be so careful going after the supports, gets stunned, but he's getting pocketed. Kassar just won't die. And Tea and Biscuits will reset, but they only need to take 61% to lead the series 2-1.
And now coming with a dive of their own. We'll have to see if Filion does wind up sticking to this. This Brigitte, it seems as though that's going to be the case because they already have control. Valmaster's coming in. They've already awarded themselves one tick.
Oh, a zoning Deadeye, and you took out Toxin. You got the Diva out of mech. Team Biscuits trying to engage off of this one. Rotten, okay, he's back into mech. I wasn't sure. Now, Visto gets stunned. He gets dealt with. Osh-Tekk towards the right. The Transcendence from the offense guides them forward. And Filian also uses that, the rally to keep their numbers topped up. Osh-Tekk now have to just desperately stall this one out. They have the Hammond. They have Josephina flying around. And that will be it. Tea and Biscuits finish Volskaya, and they will lead our series 2-1.
Still, though, this is a lot closer than I initially expected going into this matchup. I mean, obviously, both teams with something to prove going into this, and we saw a lot of, consistent threats on both sides throughout this matchup as well. But Osh-Tekk is a team that I expected to put up a fight for sure, but Team Biscuits, I thought it was going to look more like Nepal going into this, and I think what we saw in Volskaya is a little bit more of a testament to what to expect, going forward. But Osh-Tekk is not down and out just yet. Certainly, do not count them out by any means. And I think as this goes, as this trial does actually progress, and we move forward with this, I think we will see a lot more of Osh-Tekk gaining that experience, gaining that knowledge, because that's something that they didn't really have as much of going into this. I mean, think about all the teams that British Hurricane are probably scrimming against all the time, and the allowance to scrim on some of these other patches as well. Because that's another thing, is that they are playing on 1.28 right now, which means that, if they do want to scrim other teams, it's not going to be as good to do it on the live client, because it's going to be slightly different than what to expect here in these matchups as well. So I think Tea and Biscuits maybe has a couple more options for themselves. Osh-Tekk, I think, are now going to be at the point where they can start to take advantage of the fact that they're in this environment. And I think we're going to see them rapidly get better. But the question is, if they do wind up losing outright today, are they going to be too far behind going forward?
I don't know. It's 2-1. Obviously, you're feeling that pressure being down a map, but Osh-Tekk got to be feeling good. They went 0-4 in their first day of trials. Now taking a map, especially against a team like Tea and Biscuits, who they've already faced in Open Division. So Tea and Biscuits finishing second in playoffs. Osh-Tekk going from the last seed to finishing fourth, getting that last spot in trials. Both teams have so much to prove, not only because they come from Open Division, but Osh-Tekk coming from a region that also has a lot to prove.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point to bring up, actually. Like you just said, where they went from Open Division, the 16th seed to the 4th seed. I think that's a similar progression that we're going to be seeing here. There is obviously a lot more competition at this tier of play than there is in Open Division. I mean, it's just natural. It is the path to pro. As you rise up, it gets much tougher. But I think, like I said before, it is going to become a team that is progressively getting better, and at a very decent rate, I would say so as well, because we're already seeing a lot more adaptation, something that was a big problem against British Hurricane, which is, probably, if not one of, then just the titan of this Contenders trials round robin. I think that they really struggled with adaptation. They really struggled with some of their execution, especially with their dive. I think they've really turned that around. Yes, Tea and Biscuits is a much different team than British Hurricane, as to what we expect at least. But still, Tea and Biscuits is playing well, and Osh-Tekk is matching them, and in sometimes even surpassing them. So outside of, I think, the Eichenwald setups that we saw, where they were able to kind of steal away that win a little bit, they really kind of struggled, I think, in a lot of setups for themselves. I think that they are playing pretty well here, and I think going forward, we should expect that to continue. Now, as we move into the next map, though, I think Tea and Biscuits will likely take this one away. I think this is just a little bit too early for Osh-Tekk to have that experience that they need. But, from what we've seen the adaptation. That was one of the main things, the main negatives that we saw about this team going into it. And we've also seen more dynamic compositional plays from them as well, which was the second and probably the only other real negative that we saw from this team going into this, coming into this matchup.
And I really enjoyed the Widow matchup from Toxin versus Lynx. And I think even as the analyst,
Absolutely.
Lynx was a player to watch in trials. And now it's been actually Toxin who's been winning out more of these Widow duels. But I think in that last Volskaya map, it was Lynx's McCree. that really stood out to me. The way he uses Deadeyes to not only zone out the objective, but actually managed to get a few kills with it. So if Lynx is not feeling this Widowmaker matchup against Toxin, I think his McCree might be the right choice going forward.
And they're so aggressive with it too, right? I mean, think back to Eichenwald, where we saw him, where we saw the McCree the first time, and it's very aggressive and they're very in your face with it. We even saw them taking on Toxin in the back line, basically right next to spawn. Toxin wound up winning that one, if I'm not mistaken, but still, they're very aggressive with it. You see the same thing, that same aggression being postured up, very close to the spawn. I mean, they even went on Volskaya on second point and just re-engage the fight with two or three people right next to their spawn doors. So, I mean, that's actually huge to see. Now, as we go into Rialto now, I'm definitely expecting more of that Widow versus Widow that you mentioned, Lynx versus Toxin. We see right now and Biscuits actually going on to the Pharah, and I think that's a good pick for them. However, Osh-Tekk Warriors, it's not that same consistent GOAT style that we've seen. I mean, they have been better at playing different things, and I think if Osh-Tekk comes out here with the GOATs, I think they will be answered by Filion, but they can make those quick swaps if they need to. They didn't have to on Eichenwald, but it almost cost them the point. So I'd really like to see either a really successful first fight for them, coming out right out of the gates with a lot of aggression, shutting down someone like Valmaster, or taking Broughton right out of the mech.
Oh,
That's a startup.
That's a pretty good start, and I think and Biscuits yesterday when they played this, of course, off broadcast, they actually won Rialto against the bottom Contenders team. So I have a lot of faith in and Biscuits. They could close it out here, but it will be on the defense to start. And Osh-Tekk yesterday, I think they got full health on Rialto, so maybe not as much success, but they're switching their composition up, having Toxin, putting a lot of faith in winning this duel against the Lynx, and Osh-Tekk just trying to use their tanks, the power of their triple tank, to just brute force this payload forward.
And they're coming around the side too, and they're just going to try to swarm anybody. Valmaster and Rotten very slow on the uptake, but still looks like they might be able to get away.
Oh, Webster! Ugh! You have wings! Mercy gives you wings! Just go up for it! But Osh-Tekk, they've extended a little bit, but it's Lynx who's starting to find his strides on that Widowmaker. Osh-Tekk don't have a ton of members, but they've actually managed to clean off the remaining members of and Biscuits. They pushed this payload forward, but there could be one last engage from and Biscuits before point A is captured.
Now we'll see them set up. I mean, they have the ability to hold this down with this composition. This is a good setup for them, especially as Toxin is in a great position to just lay down the threat right through. I mean, they just give up the payload entirely.
I'm surprised they didn't re-engage, not having that Lucio. They don't have a ton of speed and don't want to risk kind of feeding more ultimates to Osh-Tekk, who have two on the board and looking towards a Graviton. A really high energy here. Kassar is still brute forcing that payload forward, and and Biscuits, they'll have a nano, and who will it be placed on? Is it going to be Filion or is it going to be Valmaster?
I think they're going to go for Volmaster here, but now we see the Graviton up for Kassar, and this is going to be the hardest point for them to get through because they have to go through a choke, and now with the advantage, they have the ability to do it.
Barrage! Sucka's coming right behind, but he actually gets dealt with pretty easily from Toxin. Would have wanted to take out that Widowmaker player before going for it, and now Valmaster uses Primal to clear that space and could get that boop. Has to be careful of the water themselves. Surprisingly, monkeys can't swim. Osh-Tekk, hold on to the Graviton and just use it now to take care of very weak Valmasters. So choices in Graviton's not my favorite, but they managed to win the fight nonetheless.
Yeah, maybe not the most useful Graviton there, but and Biscuits also utilized a lot of what they had to pretty much no effect either. So we saw Filion going in, and I mean, Osh-Tekk were able to create a great isolation of the nano-boosted Pharah to take him out very cleanly, very quickly as well. So I like positionally what Osh-Tekk is doing in terms of how they're taking these fights. Let's just get that ultimate efficiency back online from what we saw from Eichenwald.
And only one Widowmaker left on the board, and now it's self-destruct towards the back! And it still finds two! Very surprising. Osh-Tekk now have won this fight on the back of one ultimate, and now they can push this payload at the end of point B, and Rotten would have liked to die on the payload to buy time for reinforcements, but I don't think and Biscuits will be there as Osh-Tekk look towards the end of point C with 4 minutes and 40 left.
Talk about momentum, though. I mean, Osh-Tekk are just surging ahead. Team Biscuits have really yet to find a good foothold for themselves. I mean, they've contested a few times, but it really hasn't been a full, hard victory that they've been able to say that they came away with that. But now as we look forward, Osh-Tekk already with that sound barrier looking to get aggressive once again.
Ole going after Rotten, the shatter is blocked, and now talking about that momentum, Osh-Tekk start to go on forward, and it's the coalescence that helps them with that lane clear here. Also healing their tanks going forward. Team Biscuits, they try and retreat. They want to set up a final defense at point C, who really haven't been able to stop Osh-Tekk whatsoever, as Kassar holding on to that Graviton will be coming around the corner to surprise them and catches everybody, but no Transcendence, no sound barrier, nothing. Team Biscuits are completely wiped out. Osh-Tekk will be finishing Rialto with 3 minutes and looks like 42 exactly on the clock.
I mean, that was Eichenwald, but without the hiccup at the beginning. I mean, that was Osh-Tekk just basically uncontested. What a turnaround from what we saw from Volskaya as well, where it's been just this back and forth. I mean, think about how we started on Nepal. Team Biscuits had full control. Big momentum shift on Eichenwald, where Osh-Tekk were able to take them on very easily there, I think, in some regard, once they dealt with that first point. Now, all of a sudden, I mean, it quickly went back to Volskaya, Team Biscuits. Now we're back to Osh-Tekk. So, I mean, it's very much back and forth. It's going to be very tough now as well for Team Biscuits to take what just happened and make this a winnable affair for them. I mean, this is going to be very tough for them to be able to match a time like that and then do something with that into overtime, or rather, post first pushes. So Osh-Tekk Warriors now very much in the driver's seat, very much at ease, I think, to be able to tie this one up in this second matchup, and I think that would be very good for them as they look to continue to better themselves throughout trials. So for their defensive setup, it looks like we're going to be seeing Toxin once again on the Widowmaker. I think this is a really good play for them because I think it's been one of the better pillars of their team so far. Toxin being able to not only contest links, but has kind of shined, I guess, really, and pretty much all the times that we've seen him on this. So, I mean, Team Biscuits have been forced to even swap in some occasions to deal with it, where Osh-Tekk has only, I think, once or twice been going to that Genji setup to deal with links and some of the other threats that Team Biscuits have put on the table for themselves. So definitely look for that matchup between Toxin and Lynx. Definitely look for as well that space creation that's going to come from Filion if he does wind up sticking with this, but it's not going to be that. They might. Is Rotten going to stay this? So they're going to go triple DPS here.
Triple DPS and only the Orisa as your shield tank. No damage mitigation from any D.Va. So Lynx doesn't have a lot of protection and will be going towards the left side to try and get a line of sight onto Toxin. So this Team Biscuits now switching to a dive. So this was a bit of a mix-up. This seems more like what they'd like to run. Filion will be doing some scouting, and this is a really good map to do scouting. You don't have a lot of line of sight at the end of point A, so Filion will going towards the back, see where the Widowmaker is, see where the supports are, and then coordinate the dive from there.
It's going to be really tough for them to carry momentum if they do wind up winning this first fight. They won't be able to do what we saw Osh-Tekk doing, but now as we look to see them start this fight up very quickly, I mean, already it's, again, Osh-Tekk in the driver's seat. You can see the pressure being put out as well by Toxin as he once again wins out the duel. And Jen, I honestly think that at this point, maybe take Lynx off of that setup, because yes, you are forcing a different kind of play style from Osh-Tekk's tanks because they know that they have to deal with the Widow. But if you're not winning out this duel, you will fall behind in time, and it's so pivotal right now given the fact. And this is the problem.
What a little head glitch he's got there. That's pretty sick. And now he's got an infrasight, and they'll be able to see even better where this offense is coming from, but not a lot of momentum from Team Biscuits, who are stuck in spawn.
Yeah, and they're stuck trying to find some way to get out, and they know that they can't really peek because the infrasight is still up from Toxin. That'll die out, and they will be able to push forward, but they're going to take that side approach, and it's already scouted because they still have the infrasight.
Yeah, they still see where this is coming from, and Team Biscuits, they'll try and charge through. They could be starting to push Osh-Tekk in that small corridor. They gotta, spread out a little bit. And now it's Osh-Tekk's defense that are really pressuring them back, losing your Zarya, and now losing Volmaster on that Reinhardt. So Team Biscuits get their push stalled out again.
And we will see Osh-Tekk just in full control right now. Team Biscuits without any value from anything that they've been able to put out so far. Lynx back on the Widow to see if maybe they can find a way to deal with Toxin, but he's just been hard pressed to win these fights. It's really going to come down to that. I mean, if Toxin...
Oh, Shutter! Oh, it's big! It catches everybody and he charges through! And the Graviton response is to self-destruct. There's no shield there. Oh, and he gets back just in time. The Sound Bearer is also there to keep this push going from Tea and Biscuits, who are just chasing the last remaining members of Osh-Tekk. Man, Hurix, I thought we were going to see a spawn fight till the end of Rialto, but Tea and Biscuits might actually manage to get point A here unless Osh-Tekk re-engage.
You have to wonder, is it going to be the exact opposite on Eichenwald, where we saw that struggle for
God.
first point and Tea and Biscuits just rampages through? But it's going to be tough for that to actually occur. I mean, Tea and Biscuits are going to be hard-pressed to carry this momentum forward, but Lynx did win out the Widow duel, so definitely got to give him a pat on the back for that one, because Toxin has been really, really tough to deal with for Tea and Biscuits so far. And going forward, there's not really a lot available here for Tea and Biscuits. They don't have that momentum from their Zarya with that high energy, gathering up a lot of ult charge as well. So they're going to have to take this next fight as well.
Unlucky, Rotten just got booped off the map, and with that Inforesight, Tea and Biscuits tried to set up a sneaky high ground defense. Oh, with the Shatter, it's huge. You got a Transcendence, you got everything, and you got to clear out this Zarya. It's Filion. It's going to get the triple self-destruct. This guy can play DPS. He can also play a mean off-tank. Tea and Biscuits, we win this fight.
And they need to push this payload for it and also get set up in a position where they can start pushing Osh-Tekk back so they can still create some more space for this payload to come forward even more. We see that Venom Mine stacked up there, so they might have some good vision of them and just a little bit of extra kind of choking pressure for them. But Toxin, look at this angle he's taking. He's going to be able to maybe get the Zen. Can he find him on the peak?
Oh my god, if the Zen would have won that snipe battle, but now you got a Graviton on the field and Coalescence to add on top of that. Osh-Tekk starting to hold this defense. They pressure Tea and Biscuits back. That was a clean one.
Yeah, very quick retake for themselves. And I think the big impact there is just taking the time off the clock, because again, they're just so far ahead. So they can basically just take all these fights as slow as they want. And I think that is really their play, to take these and slow the pace of the game down as much as possible, to take more time off the clock so that they have, even if they let this go through, they have that big advantage of just that massive time bank that they have allotted for themselves.
I wonder how big this Shatter is going to be, and it's Vista that slams it down, and the counter shatters. A lot of action happening in this tiny hotel room, and it looks like the defense have gotten that upper hand, taking out Volmaster, but now it's a Graviton from the offense to try and clear the way. Self-destruct, it just clears the entire field, and Pecan Pie, he goes down. It's not going to happen. Tea and Biscuits are just struggling to get any momentum, and a high charge Kassar is going to push them back even farther.
Yeah, Kassar, I mean, he's going to be able to have this Graviton. Rotten didn't get much value out of his, but look how aggressive Team Biscuits is getting into this, and they just completely dodge out. Only Volmaster just kind of gets sucked into that.
Kassar is not having fun with these Gravitons. I don't know about that. Tea and Biscuits now have survived. They've survived some pretty deathly ultimates, and now you got a Transcendence that guides Tea and Biscuits more and more forward, and Kassar tries to respond with his high energy. So Osh-Tekk have burned so much time off the clock, it's now down to the last 35 seconds. Tea and Biscuits got to make it happen.
They have to make the play here. They already have some kills, so the Graviton just gets wasted there as they're coming around this corner. It's really just Toxin. Can he find some kills? And I'm just not sure that he can.
No, it's not going to be a Widow duel. It's going to be a mini Conga to the face or a Fire Strike, pick your pick. And it will be point B earned for Tea and Biscuits. There's a minute 40 left. That's not a lot of time to work with, and they got to finish the map. If Osh-Tekk manage to hold this defense, we will go to a game 5, and it's a Graviton from Kassar that could be a good start for the defense.
And a little bit of extra help to the Widow duel that was hurting them. I mean, taking more tanks to go out as well. I mean, Toxin switching over to the Brig, that's another shield to hide behind, where Sir Majed could just take the duel himself on the Zen, and that's just a little bit better for them because they actually get a little bit more of a fight into Valmaster as well.
Oh, the Shatter comes through for the offense, and Volmaster gets punished for it. Both Reinhardts are down, actually. So our Team Biscuits going to want to keep engaging on this. Well, when you got Sir Majed popping off as a Zenyatta, probably not. But they got time to work with. Still a minute left. That will be their last chance, though.
It's going to be so tough. I mean, 50 seconds. You don't have your Graviton. I mean, Osh-Tekk has their own, but they also have a Transcendence to answer. So, I mean, going into this next fight, Team Biscuits have to take the long fight, but that just hurts their time bank even more, right? So now even if they cap it, they're just going to give, a minute over to Osh-Tekk Warriors as extra time bank. So it's just going to become even more difficult. Even if they win this, it's just a losing battle.
And Lynx doesn't have the greatest line of sight. There's only really a few doorways he could go into. As the Shatter from Vista opens everything up. The Transcendence from T and Biscuits tries to keep them up. And you got a Sound Barrier, but they get trapped in the middle of the Graviton. Once that's all over, Osh-Tekk just rained all this damage in. And that will be the end. Osh-Tekk hold this defense. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to a Game 5.
Wow. Back and forth, exactly. I mean, Osh-Tekk have taken this into yet another control. But remember back, I mean, Nepal, that was handily in favor of Tea and Biscuits. They were able to easily take that one, and they looked very good at doing it. We'll have to see if maybe the adaptation is going to come back into play where Osh-Tekk was able to come through and actually make some big adjustments coming certainly out of the half where they look a lot better. But even on Eichenwald where they were able to take that map and get us to this position originally. So I'm really looking at this to be the key indicator of whether or not we've seen that progression that I've been talking about this entire time, or perhaps it's something else. Perhaps, some of these maps just were more in favor of Osh-Tekk than I originally anticipated, and maybe Eichenwald was more of a fluke or something like that. But we'll have to see, because I think that will be the big indicator for us to look at.
And I was kind of hyping up Tea and Biscuits at the start of Rialto because they had actually won Rialto against Copenhagen Flames, a bottom Contenders team in yesterday's Trials game. So I'm very surprised to see this turnaround, especially from Osh-Tekk. Very happy, surprised to see we're going to a Game 5, which will be Control. We'll be finding out in a second what that map will be. But Control in this series was taken by Tea and Biscuits 2-0. So this might be a strong favor for them.
Yeah, I think, we are going to be moving into Ilios. So I think that looking at this matchup, I think this is good for Osh-Tekk. Yes, there is going to be some potential problems with Farah, but they have dealt with that lately. I mean, we look back to Rialto and they were able to kind of isolate the Farah in a lot of situations and play things a little bit slower. Now, if they can get control early on with their goats and be aggressive and maybe even play something like a McCree, which they have played on Ilios yesterday against British Hurricane, then I think they're going to find some value there. I think they actually have a pretty good shot at taking this, but should be noted that both of these teams right now suffering from being 0-1 right now in the round robin have both only played winners of Contenders so far. I mean, we're talking about British Hurricane, who were, a very, very solid team, won out and was excellent season 1, and all of a sudden just wasn't that great season 2, really kind of struggled in that meta. I mean, that team that we're seeing, Copenhagen Flames as well, I mean, that's a power roster. That was the French super team. You bring in Heiko as well, and all of a sudden, like, it just works out for you, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I would definitely look to see this again being the big indicator. Who's the wild card team to look at? Who is the team that is going to be surging forward and contesting some of those bigger names, as we go ahead? And whoever wins this map right here and right now, that is going to be the name that you're looking for.
Yeah, starting your series or starting your trials 0-2 is
Very tough.
that's a feels bad. And
Hard to come back
the Contenders team, the bottom Contenders teams, that's fine, but you got to win out your games against the open division teams if you want to even have a shot at those 4 spots going into the Contenders season. And there's a lot of question marks around the bottom Contenders team, especially British Hurricane. Are they still a top team? Because it was a big surprise to even see them in trials after how dominant, even beating Fusion University at one point. Now they're seeing themselves in trials. So very looking forward to seeing either what Contenders teams come back to Contenders or what open division teams prove themselves going forward. And I would be so happy to see Osh-Tekk in Contenders, not only to prove the region missing out on World Cup, but just to prove everybody wrong,
Yeah, I mean, obviously these two teams really haven't had a lot of those same chances that some of the other teams players have on their roster.
Mhm.
So this is really like not just an opportunity to prove themselves, but it's their first opportunity to be in this kind of level of competition. Yes, Osh-Tekk have a lot of money in their pockets right now from a tournament that they just won regionally, but that's nowhere close to the same level of competition that we see even here at Contenders Trials. Team Biscuits, kind of in a similar state. I mean, yes, they have some players, names that you should recognize, particularly as of late, Filian, who came from Dopamine. So if you've watched any of the open division, coming into this, you certainly know that name because Dopamine was a team that was looking very solid. So I think obviously, if you even watch, I think it's Street Fighter that Valmaster came from, if I'm not mistaken. So there are certainly some names here, but a lot of these guys haven't played at this level. They haven't had this stress of this level of competition that some of the bigger teams have had. And I think that's going to be something to keep your eye on as well, is just, how they maintain composure. And so far, we've seen a lot of that from both of these teams, these moments where they stay composed, especially Team Biscuits on their retakes. That's something that I think has been really shining through a lot in a lot of these defenses from them and has kept them in a lot of games, is their ability to maintain that composure, stay in the game and stay calm and stay very efficient in their target priorities, so that when they do come back into the fight, they are able to take out players that are key in Osh-Tekk Warriors' staying power, and then win fights like that. I mean, we've seen it on Eichenwald first point, and we've seen it on Volskaya second point. So now looking at Control, we may not see that as much because the retakes are kind of hit and miss, I think, on a map like Ilios. But going forward, I would definitely expect to see both of these teams looking to try to take this very slowly because of how serious of the nature of this game and this position of this game being Game 5. This is the tone setter right now. If they lose, they're pretty much stamping their way out of Trials. So this is all a marbles right now for both of these squads. And I think Team Marbles, Oasis actually is the map that we're going to be playing. But still, same thing occurring here. We're still expecting to see maybe a little bit of that Pharah, maybe a little bit of that Widow v Widow. Certainly some goats to be played, particularly on a map like University, but expect a lot of that. Maybe some dive to be played as well on City Center. So I'm curious to see what kind of looks we get from both these teams. We've seen a lot already, but it looks like starting things out, it might actually just be a goat style from Team Biscuits, maybe with the McCree though.
But I'm looking forward to seeing if Filian's going to bring that Pharah. And sometimes when I see they want to play safer, they play with him on the Brigida. And especially when you have a Rhine versus Rhine or even a dive team, Brigida plays such a pivotal role at opening up the shields or stopping a dive. And when you have Lynx on the McCree with Filian, then you got double stun going on. So we'll see what support he will bring out. Is it going to be the Ana? Is it going to be a Lucio? As we're setting up the map so you get to see our faces back again. And we could speculate a lot of things, but I think the Pharah duel is something that's so important when it comes to that particular map.
Yeah, and if we do wind up seeing that, then I think that's going to be big to look at. Certainly, Widow. Maybe we wind up seeing some different stuff as well. I mean, we've seen Genji being played. I mean, if we do see a dive coming out on something like City Center or something of that nature, then that's certainly an option that they could pull out. I mean, I think that that's something that they could also play into something like Lynx wanting to play a McCree in that setting. Again, we have seen Osh-Tekk pulling out a McCree of their own with mostly a tank heavy lineup, 3-1-2, even with a Sombra is something that we've seen. So yes, I think going into this, just to kind of reiterate, just to have everybody down with the cliff notes going into this matchup, we've seen the adaptation issues for Osh-Tekk be answered. We've seen the dynamics issues be answered. Now it's just about having that execution come into play. Can Osh-Tekk close this out, or is Team Biscuits going to win out?
Team Biscuits won our map 1 on Control, and we'll see if they can do it again on Game 5. Osh-Tekk all hold this high ground. The main difference is the DPS choice. Kassar onto the McCree, which we haven't seen a ton of, but he'll be commanding this and pouring shots into Team Biscuits' shield, and they're going to be wanting to engage and avoid as much poke damage as possible. Now the point is unlocked. Osh-Tekk starting to capture it, but Team Biscuits, they engage. They have a very low shield, though. Valmaster is taking a lot of damage at the start, and Osh-Tekk holding this high ground. Haven't wanting to mess with that, but actually it's Team Biscuits that are looking for the cap, and finally Osh-Tekk dropped down.
Oh, instantly! You can see how quickly Visto gets annihilated, basically disintegrated there, and just well positioned by Team Biscuits initially, and now they have the control, and now it's going to be very tough for Osh-Tekk to retake. And we'll see Team Biscuits just kind of play with this as much as they possibly can to try to get some more ult charge for Lynx and stay ahead of Kassar, who just made the swap off the McCree that we saw him on Ilios with yesterday against British Hurricane, now back over to the Zarya to just get that mirror matchup going.
See Osh-Tekk surging forward and using now Tox onto the Brigida to open up Valmaster's shield, but Mini Konga already has a Transcendence. So once Team Biscuits, they start feeling the pressure, expect this to come out. Link so high, really close to that Graviton coming out. He also could see this come out in the first fight. So Osh-Tekk will be going forward and they'll be relying on that Transcendence if that Graviton comes out. Now it's only a few people that are actually oh my god, he gets charged in the middle of the Transcendence. So Kassar wasn't able to be saved there as Team Biscuits, they accumulate more percentage points.
Oh, this is a big opportunity for an Earthshatter, but it comes the other direction, Visto!
Oh my god, Team Biscuits have to use their own Transcendence and they gotta rally. A lot of ultimates are invested, 65% and growing. Osh-Tekk need to reset now if they want to clean engage. Now they're using a self-destruct. You can see they're feeling the pressure. Osh-Tekk looking to re-engage, but there's really not a lot of members. There's only 3 left and Team Biscuits are accumulating ultimates as this is happening.
Yeah, and the longer this fight goes, the better it is for Team Biscuits. So even if they don't win out, they're still getting all this free pressure, all this free score accruance as well, and that'll be a free kill for them at the end. I mean, if they lose the Reinhardt here, which they're going to, I don't think that they have the opportunity to come back in and have any sort of semblance of ability to fight.
Yeah, Osh-Tekk needed to reset so early there. Now they need to rush on in with those stagger kills that happened at the end. And you got Lynx 81 on Graviton, and they don't touch. No, someone needed... So where's the Tracer? Where's your Lucio? Somebody throw a body or a thing onto the point. Yeah, Osh-Tekk losing that 100-0 here. That's not what we expected.
The one mobility hero they used, Jen, is the one of the last people to respawn. Jazafina going over to the Hammond, and it's just one of the last people to respawn. So there's just no way that he's going to be able to make it, even if you just put like every speed boost on him as possible. I mean, you're only going to get the Lucio, but it's still just not enough. There's no way he could make it there in 3, maybe 4 seconds at absolute maximum. But here's that other map that I was maybe expecting, some more dive play to be played here, but doesn't look like that's going to be the case. We're actually going to be seeing Toxin instead on the Widow, playing from that high ground. It's going to be difficult for Team Biscuits to adjust to that particularly. I mean, they're really going to have to make sure that they're keeping Webster and Mini Konga safe, or else those are going to be easy pickings for Toxin on the Widowmaker.
Oh, he already got a dink there, and very surprised exactly not to see dive from both teams, and Osh-Tekk focusing on that high ground whilst Team Biscuits using the cover of the middle pillar, and Toxin getting some shots, and he's only been finding the tanks, so would love to finish on one of the supports, but now they have to keep in mind this crossfire from Toxin on this Widowmaker. Team Biscuits, all they have to do is survive, and getting that 2K, Valmaster looking great. Rotten adding on to that. Team Biscuits will get the first take here.
I mean, if they just deny the line of sight and try to pull Osh-Tekk into them, they will win that fight every single time. I mean, again, with Filion and Mini Konga there, they have the ability to just drop Visto immediately. So if they don't swap Toxin off, and they will do just that, then they're going to lose that fight every single time, because it's up to them to take the fight to Team Biscuits now, as Team Biscuits has control. And without the Brig to set things up onto Valmaster, there's just no way that they would win out.
And this is dangerous because this particular point can be stalled out for so long. You could see Team Biscuits go to 99% before Osh-Tekk maybe even get a chance to retake. So they have to be careful. They're just getting the right positioning, deciding if they want to go mid or go towards the right. But Team Biscuits are chasing them down, and Valmaster has a shatter. Not even needing to use it, just the pure hammer will obliterate Osh-Tekk, and they will have to reset.
And Valmaster coming away as well with his life means a lot more healing for Webster to get up that, I mean, very pivotal ultimate, and being able to deal with some of the things that Osh-Tekk is going to throw at them soon to try to get control here. But we'll have to see the timings. That's going to be super important, because obviously Team Biscuits wants to utilize what they have to control for longer, but Osh-Tekk has to be careful, because they need to be, I mean, in some ways they need to be patient so that they have options to not just go 1-for-1 against them, but they also need to make sure that they have options for later as well.
Shatter from Visto is not going to find much, but the Sound Bear will try and get them a retake and Transcendence response, but it doesn't That was a graviton here from Kassar, and this fight is getting messy. Osh-Tekk, is this the chance that they have to retake? They've lost their tanks, they've lost Jazafina. They're going down quick. Team Biscuits getting to 85%. Osh-Tekk need to touch. This is game 5. This is their last chance, or Osh-Tekk will go down 0-2 to start trials.
Oh, no way. No way do they let this Hammond touch. Visto sneaking his way around. Can he get there in time? He's trying his best. He does, but he gets charged, and he's going to be taken out. And I don't know if anybody else can make it. They get booted back. There's overtime, and Jin, that's just it. Tea and Biscuits are able to take it. And looking at this map, I mean, Tea and Biscuits completely, I mean, talking about control as a map type, that's all they did all map long is control, control, control. And there wasn't one moment where it seemed like they were going to lose that.
This is definitely Osh-Tekk's weakest game type. 200 to zeros like that after you pushed yourself to a game 5, that's got to be gut-wrenching, especially for me trying to cast all this amazing action. It's just the opposite of momentum from Osh-Tekk getting us to game 5 and then pulling this. So I'm disappointed, but I hope that they can improve on this game type as they go forward in trials.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the one thing that has kind of stood out as a sore thumb, I think, is just their performance on control. Obviously, we considered that maybe against British Hurricane, it wasn't as much of an issue because they were just struggling on all the maps. But now that they have had some opportunity to show that they do have prowess against some of these teams here, like Tea and Biscuits, it's still kind of sticking out as control is a problem map type for them, at least against Tea and Biscuits. I mean, Tea and Biscuits did obviously look very solid in it. They look like a much different team, actually, but nonetheless, not pulling it out on control started the same way it finished.
Well, Tea and Biscuits will be 1-1 in trials now, and Osh-Tekk will be 0-2 as we send it over to the desk of Labasco, Vowels, and Kenobi to wrap up our match.
Thank you very much, Lemon Kiwi and Heroics. It was a great game from you guys. Great game that we had to a 3-2 win, of course, for Tea and Biscuits over Osh-Tekk Warriors. This was one that really kind of went back and forth. But one of the things that we pointed out, or that we were talking about prior to coming into this, Vowels, was Toxin was a game changer for Osh-Tekk. And when he came in for them, that's when you sort of saw them sort of congeal more and start to play a lot better. Why was he such a difference maker?
I feel like this matchup ultimately came down to being able to enable certain cavi players. For Tea and Biscuits, that was Lynx and Fillion almost interchangeably. But for Osh-Tekk, it was definitely on Toxin. When you weren't running the 3-3 matchups and you got him off Brigitte to something like Widowmaker, where he could have a more decisive impact, that's where we really saw Osh-Tekk shine, where he could come up with those huge plays.
And another thing that was interesting about the switch that he made onto that Widowmaker was he was forcing Lynx onto Widowmaker. And when you're forcing Lynx onto that Widowmaker, probably not his best comfort pick. He had some good moments, but there it was really just in the battle between Toxin and Lynx. Toxin came out on top multiple times. So having the ability to basically make the enemy team pick something to counter you is definitely something that Osh-Tekk Warriors can hang their hat on with the play that we saw from Toxin.
And it didn't work for them always. Oh, go ahead, Vowels.
I was going to say, it's not just Lynx moving over either, because you then force Tea and Biscuits to completely rejig their comp. Roten, who's been playing a lot of the Diva in their 3-3 compositions, has to move over to Desire. Fillion, who's a flex DPS and has been playing Brigitte, has to pick up the Diva. You force Tea and Biscuits to readjust their entire composition. And although Osh-Tekk couldn't actually secure the win off the back of that, it's definitely exploited a weakness in Tea and Biscuits, forcing those swap-overs because of where the hero pools overlap.
When you look at the side of Tea and Biscuits, it's a great win for them, Kenobi, a hard-fought game. I mean, they lost to Copenhagen, who can arguably be considered one of the best teams in Contenders trials, just with what that roster is comprised of. So it's a tough, hard-fought win for them. But what was the biggest difference for them to find this? Because I think for me, it seems like it was the way they played the 3-3 so much better than Osh-Tekk did.
Yeah, I think the 3-3 coming out from Team Biscuits was just, it was very, very aggressive and very clean cut. You know, when you're going in with goats, you have to be very careful that with your cooldown management and how you're running at a team. And it seems like Team Biscuits had a very good idea of just like when to go, when to hit the go button, understanding that, okay, Osh-Tekk is running something like a McCree. Let's just run at McCree. McCree's not going to be able to do much. He has no appeal for himself besides the roll. And once we get that cooldown down, he's basically just a sitting duck waiting to be just jumped on. So the way that Team Biscuits was able to take what Osh-Tekk was giving them and use that to their advantage, I think was something that I really like from Team Biscuits going forward, and I definitely want to see more of that.
And the thing about Tea and Biscuits too here, guys, is that the maps where they were good, they were really good.
Really
They
good.
just dominated on the maps. They could dominated control. They won assault pretty heavily. It was those other map types, hybrid and payload, where they had the most troubles with. For them, Vowels moving forward, what is it you want to see them improve upon? Because they can do that. This is a team that can definitely make it out of trials.
Yeah, I think ultimately this just shows how big an advantage being able to select, how big an advantage you can get from map choices. It was Team Biscuits who went out the initial control map on Nepal, and from there, both teams just won their own map picks. So I'd like to see both these teams actually get a little bit stronger across the board. You definitely have your preferred maps, but try and have at least a contingency plan if you take somewhere you're comfortable with. You could definitely tell with both of these teams what maps they had pre-prepared strategies for, and then where they started to fall apart.
And when they made some good switches too, I mean, one that you wanted to point it out, Vowels, was the Moira to Zen switch by Sir Mahid. So really quickly, if you could give us a little bit on that.
Filion on the Pharaoh was giving Osh-Tekk Warriors a lot of problems early on, especially being able to force out cooldowns like Moira's Fade. Once the switch onto Zenyatta came out, even though he doesn't necessarily have more survivability on his own, he was able to put a lot more pressure onto Filion, able to enable Toxin to put pressure onto Filion, and that forced an entire different change of plan from Team Biscuits. So I just wanted to highlight that was a really heads-up swap.
Definitely was, even though they don't get the win, they showed some things for us. These two teams, very young teams, trying to prove that they belong, and they definitely do that. Our next game, however, is going to be two teams that have been around the block a couple of times. It's going to be Copenhagen Flames versus Bazooka Puppies. We'll have that back when we come back here. Got to make some quick changes first and get ready for it, but we'll see you soon.